And thereby, for the crime of using click switches in an office, I sentence you to transcribing El Quijote.
Oh, that's not so bad. I have my Dygma rays.
With unlooped switches.
No! God, no! No! Hello, Digmates. I'm Dominique, and today we're going to get down and dirty. Literally, with grease, tools, and whatnot. Because today we're going to learn how to lube mechanical switches. So stay with me for tips and tricks and some satisfying sound tests.
Oh yeah.
First off, is it worth lubing my switches? I mean, they should work just fine out of the factory, right? Well, from a functional standpoint, there's only one reason to lube your switches, and that's to remove the spring ping. On the other hand, lubing is so much more than removing the spring ping. It's also about improving the feeling when you type. And considering that we press our switches more than 50,000 times a day, it's probably a good idea to get that feeling right. So with that out of the way, let's get swifty.
It's time to get swifty in here.
First, you have to get the right materials and tools. Since we're lubing electronic components, we can't just use any greasy material sitting around the house. Instead, we'll use dielectric grease. We recommend getting a thicker one for the switch, the most common being Krytox 205, and a thinner one for the spring, like the Krytox 105, which is closer to oil. They are usually sold together. You can find them in your local hardware and electronic stores, but we'll also link them in the description below. The other tools required will be the keycap and switch puller, a switch opener. You can work around with a flat screwdriver, but this little guy will save you a lot of time. It's worth the investment. Tweezers, and no, not the barbecue ones. A thin brush, around 5 millimeters, will suffice. A jeweler's claw. This isn't necessary, but it comes in handy. And of course, our signature Dygma balls. Bowls, not balls, bowls. All these tools are often sold as part of lubing kits. If it's your first time doing this, we recommend you get a kit and save more time. The first order of business is pulling the switches out. You've seen me disassemble keyboards before, so now let's just get on disassembling the switches. You'll need to find the correct side of the switch opener. For example, for cherry, it's this side, and for kale, it's this other side. And then press down. Grab the top housing first, then the stem, then carefully remove the spring and the bottom housing. Keep each part in a separate container. To lube the springs, throw them all in a bag and sprinkle them with a few drops of the thinner grease and hit it!
Shake, shake, shake. Shake your booty.
The goal is to improve the feel and movement of the switch, so we need to lube all the moving parts. Grab the bottom housing and take a tiny bit of grease. Always start with a small amount. Going short on lube is not a big problem. You can always add. Removing it is much more complicated. Okay, so you might ask, but what's too much lube? Here's a hint. If the grease looks white, it's too much. Try to remove it with a brush and redistribute it. Now paint these plastic channels in the bottom housing. And don't forget to add some grease to the spring holder. To lube the stem, it's better to grab it with a claw and gently grease the parts that's in contact with the rails, the front, and the back. Don't lube the legs of the stem, especially if you're lubing tactile or clicky switches. Doing so might reduce or even remove the tactile bump, and that's not what we're looking for here. Once the parts are all lubed, it's time to reassemble the switch. Use the tweezers to grab the spring and place it on the holder of the bottom housing. Now mount the stem on the spring. Pay close attention to the direction of the legs. They must point to the leaf. Otherwise, the switch won't work. Finally, place the upper housing very, very carefully this way, with the flat bit opposite to the metal leaf. It's not rocket science, but it's also easy to mess up if you're not paying close attention. And you're done. Now repeat the process for all of your switches. Reassemble the keyboard and enjoy. Additionally, here are some more tips and advice for lubing your switches. Some might seem obvious, but you never know. There's a reason why strollers come with a warning not to fold them with your child inside. Number 1, create a proper setup for the operation. Number 2, don't touch the lube with your bare hands. You don't want to get grease all over your setup. 3, double check if you've correctly closed the switch. Otherwise, it won't fit on your keyboard. Always listen to that click sound the switch makes when properly closed. Click. And finally, watch your posture. Don't slouch or bend the neck. Come on, guys. I mean, ergonomics. Again, we'd like to remind you that lubing your switches is not strictly necessary. In fact, some switches come pre-lubed from the factory, like the Gatoron yellows or Kale switches, which come lightly pre-lubed. But it feels so good when you do it. If you press your switches thousands of times a day, why not make that experience more pleasant? Feel free to drop your questions or share personal lubing experiences in the comments section below. Like and subscribe for more content, and see you in the next video. Until then, it's time to get greasy.
Go grease sliding and you're burning up the quarter mile. Go grease sliding.
Shake, shake, shake. Okay, that's me. That's it. That's my dignity gone.